Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining. I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to join. Typically, I do TikTok at the same time, but last time I did TikTok at the same time, I got restricted for using language that I was not allowed to use. So I am now restricted until August 9th, unless hi Joanna, unless my appeal goes through. I have appealed it, so I'm just waiting for them to approve it, and hopefully they will. So thank you for Joanna for joining and whoever else decides to join. So tonight I'm going to discuss hi Lavin, thank you for joining. I'm going to discuss the Lindsay Clancy trial and case, basically. And I'm going to kind of outline it from the top and give everybody an overview as to how we got here today, where this started, and how we ended up with a trial today at August 7th, 2026. So let's start that. I have my little write-up, so we'll start there. So I'll start with just telling you who everybody is that's involved. We have Lindsay Clancy and Patrick Clancy. They are the parents of this case. There are parents and 3 children. So parents are Lindsay Clancy and Patrick Clancy. Lindsay is 35 right now. When this happened, she was 32. Her date of birth is August 11th, 1990, and Patrick Clancy is 38 right now. At the time of this crime, he was 35. He was born on June 15th of 1988. So he's got 2 years on her, just about. They had 3 children together. Cora, date of birth was December 24th, 2017. Next was Dawson, a boy. Date of birth was September of 2019. I could not find the date for that. And then their last one was Callan, a boy, and her date of birth, or his date of birth, was May 26, 2022. For their careers, Lindsay was a labor and delivery nurse, and hi, Flojo has joined. I've gotten some mixed things about Patrick, but some say he worked in some data research. Basically, I'm just going to say he worked in IT. So on January 24th, 2023, the unthinkable happened, and a bunch of events led to this date, the 24th of January, 2023, and Lindsay Clancy committed the unthinkable, and she killed all 3 of her children. Hi, Jeannie. And she killed her oldest, Cora, who was 5 years old at the time, Dawson, her middle son, who was 3 at the time, and Callan, her youngest, who was 8 months old at the time. So let's kind of talk about who they are. Like I said, Lindsay is a labor and delivery nurse, and Patrick works in IT. In 2013, from just brief research that I found, Lindsay was in school for her nursing degree. She was, I guess her roommate was Patrick's cousin, and that's how Patrick and Lindsay met and started dating. 3 years later, they were married. So they got married on December 3rd, 2016. And supposedly they shared this desire to have a family immediately. They wanted a large family, and so they did. And soon after their wedding date in this early December of 2016, Cora was born in December 24th of 2017. So just about a year later. So pretty much by simple math, we can assume that she was pregnant by March and had the baby by December. So kind one of the hot topics, or one thing that is being spoken about with this case, is that Lindsay suffered severe postpartum depression. So one thing, we'd like to find out is, did she suffer this postpartum depression when she had Cora, her first? So some things that I was able to find is she did in fact return to work as a labor and delivery nurse after having her firstborn Cora, but she did want to reduce her schedule. So to me, that looks like there was some resistance, there was some anxiety already setting in, and that's why she didn't go back full time. She went back part time, and I think her schedule reflected like a 20-hour week schedule at this point. And there was some story, some people told some stories. I'm not sure if this came out in court or whatnot. I just found it in reading today. And that there was one instance where she was so paranoid about the care that Cora was receiving while she was back at work that she set up a monitor at her station, at her nurse station as her labor and delivery nurse station at work. I would assume in the hospital, unless she worked at like a clinic. And she was watching on the monitor, as Cora was sleeping one day, and Cora woke up crying, and she was texting Patrick to go and check on her, and he wasn't responding, and she kind of panicked. So she ended up calling the police to go and do a check on the home because he wasn't responding as quickly as she would have wanted him to. So, and just to speak on that, I'm a mother. I have 3 children as well, and we don't know, everyone mothers differently. Everybody has their children in a different time of their lives and a different point of their lives, and they're dealing with all these different pressures of this and that. And what I haven't been able to find is, where were they as a couple? Where were they in their marriage? Were they having a healthy marriage at this point? How was her pregnancy? Was it a good pregnancy? I'm just not finding all of the information to kind of focus on them as a couple, as a union, to see how the both of them parented and how the both of them accepted this new addition into their family. Because a lot of times it's kind of all on the mom. And I'm not saying that Patrick, the dad, didn't help out or anything, because right now we just don't know. I'm just saying, as a whole, the mom takes the brunt of the care, especially if she's nursing, the nighttime schedule with nursing, the changing the diapers, this, that. And it works on our psyche. It takes away our brain function, our brain cells. And yeah, insomnia starts to set in, and we're trying to do our best. And plus, being a new mom, we want to live up to those standards, those high standards of, I can do this. I said I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to have a big family, and I promise I can do all of it. I can be the best ever. You'll see. And we never want to be a failure, especially as a mother. Nobody wants to fail as that role. We pride ourselves on that. So I'm sure that was probably a heavy pressure on her as well. Plus, being a labor and delivery nurse, she was probably thinking, and because of my profession, my career path, I have even more eyes on me thinking, well, she's got this. She's got this just fine. I mean, look what she does for a living. But that's not always the case. It really isn't. So, all right. So now, we know that she's having bouts of anxiety, and that's what she's faced with. And she's kind of panicked even when she sees Cora crying on a monitor while she's at work, to the extent of her calling the police to check on her. We have a question here from Jeannie here. Quick question. Anyone else following this case, have you heard any more about the possibility of a bipolar diagnosis for Lindsay? I myself, during all of this, up until the research that I've gotten to today, I mean, maybe I'll find it as I'm going through all this, but well, actually, give me a second. I might be able to find it if you just give me 1 second here. Well, I mean, I'll get to that. Just give me a few minutes and I'll circle back to you, Jeannie, okay? Give me a second. So back to how she called the police when Cora was crying. Other than that, though, I didn't hear any, or I haven't come upon any other instances or circumstances where she was having these kind of bouts of extreme anxiety or extreme panic to where it would be alarming. I haven't seen anything. And then they had Dawson. Dawson, as we know, was born in September of 2019. So almost 2 years later, about a year and 10 months later, a year and 9 months later, right? And so for us parents that have children that are about a year and a half to under 2 years apart, we know how kind of chaotic that can be, but it's not to say that it's not a unwanted chaos. We want this chaos, and that's why we continue to procreate. But it's an unknown chaos. Nobody goes into this saying, I know exactly what to expect. I have my calendar already planned out and scheduled for the next 3 years, and this is what it looks like, and everybody's going to follow it. There you go. Hands it out to everybody in the family. That's just not how it works. We have no idea what to expect, and nobody does. And don't even try telling me you do, because you don't. So then Dawson comes along, and this is where I'm kind of mucky on the information, because I did see something come up where perhaps she was on an antidepressant even with Dawson, and she was on Zoloft, but she didn't want to take it because it was interfering with nursing Dawson, and she wasn't lactating properly, and so she stopped taking it. I ran out of time, and I wasn't able to find anything of her being on medication prior to when these events started to occur in 2022. So I can't speak on that unless if somebody else knows about it, let me know. But I haven't seen that she was on any of the medications prior to this. It makes more sense to me that maybe she was on the Zoloft, like that she was on the Zoloft during Callan and trying to nurse, and it was impacting the nursing during that time, because the dates match up better for that. But honestly, I'm not clear on that. So then we have Dawson. I just don't have much information of that when he was born and what life was like. Then May of 2022. So that's again another year and a half, almost 2 years, not even. And now they have another baby. So, well, I mean, is it? No, it's almost 3 years now, 2.5 years. So there is another year in between there. My math's a little off. It's all right. It's Friday. So now there's 2.5 years just about, right? And then they have Callan, their third child, and that's another son. So from what we're finding from that, Patrick testifies, and he says that the 4 initial weeks after Callan was born, that there was nothing there was no different behaviors in Lindsay. There was nothing alarming, nothing to speak to, nothing to notate. So that would bring us, since he was born May 26th, that would bring us basically to the end of June of 2022. And then we also find out that they ran a 5K that summer, that they were working out, they were athletic, they were trying to be fit, and this and that. And that makes sense. After you have a baby, you want to get back in shape. I mean, she ran a 5K. That's very impressive. Especially, I mean, if she had him in May, June, July, 2 months later, that's 8 weeks. I mean, I commend her. So then they both kind of describe Lindsay during the stage as having a So then after the 4 weeks, then they start working out, preparing for this 5K in the summer. And then they kind of describe this period of time of Lindsay as a normal energetic period. And that normal energetic period kind of led into a hypomania, not hypermania, a hypomania. And the definition of hypomania reads as hypomania causes high energy, mood changes, impulsive behavior, and little need for sleep. It's less intense than mania, but still noticeable to others. It's often part of bipolar disorder, but it can also happen with other conditions. You can manage it with medication, therapy, and self-care. So it's almost like the beginning stages of this bipolar disorder, if that's really what's happening here with Lindsay. So she's also journaling and keeping notebooks and journals and jotting down her thoughts and what she's feeling and keeping kind of a pattern of what's been going on. And July 22nd of 2022, in this journal, which is also public, she says she's doing better. And then in the end of August, things start to shift and everything changes. And this is according to not only Patrick, but apparently Lindsay kind of says, yeah, I felt like towards the end of August, there was a shift in me. Something changed. And these feelings of this natural energy, euphoric, all these, I want to work out. I want to run a 5K. I got this. They all just dissipated, just on a dime, just disappeared, came to an immediate halt, and it just all changed. And that's when, and this is again towards the end of August, that's when the insomnia started, the depression started, the panic, the anxiety, the constant anxiousness, the thoughts, all of this. Hi, Natty, don't apologize. I'm glad you made it. All of that starts to set in, and essentially it sets in so drastically that it can't be reversed, right? So something that I haven't seen mentioned, and maybe somebody can, let me know, but hold on. What made me think is, what else happened in August? Like, what was going on in their lives, and maybe not just in their lives, but in the world as a whole, or just in the town, in everything. What was happening in August that we can maybe kind of dissect and look at to think of some reasonings as to why all of a sudden Lindsay went into this immediate, not even a trickle of a downward spiral, but it was an immediate, just an abrupt halt, and just now I feel terrible, and now I'm having all of the symptoms of this mental psychosis or depression, postpartum, all of it at once. So I looked into a few things. Oh, Jeannie says, it has come up, some of the medications should not be prescribed to someone who has a possibility of bipolar diagnosis. Yeah. But also at this time, they weren't sure, which I'll talk about that too. But I just want to talk about what was happening in August too. For one thing, August was her birthday. August 11th was her birthday. Could it potentially, maybe her birthday was missed and not celebrated? That would also require for us to know how it was in the past. Do they do big celebrations on birthdays? Is this a contention between them? Is this a contention that he doesn't care about holidays or special days, anniversaries, Christmases, stuff like that? And now this is just another reflection of, hey, I just had another baby, one of our children. I had another son for you, and my birthday comes and goes, and you can't even recognize it. And it's just kind of that. And I'm not saying this happened. This is all just, this is my opinion. I'm just kind of spitballing as to what could have happened in their lives that kind of led to this, because it almost doesn't make sense psychologically that it just came to an abrupt halt and it just happened like that. It doesn't, scientifically, psychologically, it doesn't make sense. It had to have been triggered by some event or events. So could it have been her birthday? Because that was in August. The other thing, I looked to see when I know I'm probably not going to say this right, where they lived, it's called Duxbury. Okay, but I looked up their school calendar and Cora was 5. So was she starting kindergarten? Was this another a moment or a thing of contention for Lindsay, that her firstborn, her daughter, was starting school, and at the same time she was returning to work, and at the same time Patrick's paternity leave was ending and he was returning back to work, and all of these factors were happening at the same time, and because of Lindsay's state of mind at this moment of late or mid-August, it just was too much for her. She just couldn't handle it. It was too much. So again, Cora was potentially starting kindergarten, which is a big deal for any parent, whether it's your first child or your 15th child, or if you're the Sliders, your 16th child. It doesn't matter. Patrick's paternity leave was ending. He was returning to work in September, and she was scheduled to return to work as well. But as we know, she kept postponing that. School was resuming for their town on August 31st. That's a beautiful day. But also that's the day that school was resuming for that calendar year. But I don't know if Cora was maybe in preschool or pre-kindergarten. I don't know. Either way, kindergarten's a big deal, and maybe that was giving her some anxiety as well, or added to it. So, and then of course we know that Lindsay was scheduled to return back to work at this time too, but she postponed it. So, let me see where I am here. So I have here that September is when Lindsay was scheduled to return to work as a labor and delivery nurse, but due to all of these indicators in her life that are causing more reasons to impact her mental status and mental health, she determines that she's not ready to return yet and postpones her return once again. At this point is when she starts to seek outside help. So on October 25th, which is another birthday in my family, she has an appointment with Dr. Jennifer Tufts. So, and I had written down what her specialty is here somewhere, but I must have lost it. Let me see. Well, I'll go back to it. So anyway, so Jennifer Tufts, and she diagnoses Dr. Jennifer Tufts diagnoses Lindsay with generalized anxiety disorder and prescribes her Zoloft, which is an antidepressant. Zoloft is also known as, just because we're going to be talking about medications, sertraline. Okay, just for later on. So she prescribes her Zoloft and sends her on her way, tells her it's just generalized anxiety disorder, gives her some Zoloft, most likely tells her, I'm going to start you off at a low dose. I'm assuming 25 milligrams or something. I'm not quite clear on how. Actually, yeah, it was 25 milligrams. I have it right here. Started her off at 25 milligrams, eventually moved her up to 50, but probably said, take this for 2 weeks and we'll see how your mood changes, if it does at all. And we'll circle back and discuss the changes, if any, and go from there. If it needs to be adjusted, moved up, changed, added to, stuff like that. So at this time, there are some more journal entries from Lindsay, and I guess she writes something along the lines of, I wish I could give Callan the attention of a firstborn, kind of insinuating that because he's a thirdborn, she's not allowed to give him the attention that a firstborn would receive due to the fact that she's got Cora and Dawson kind of pining for her attention, and she kind of she can only give Callan so much of her attention due to caring for the other two, and she just wants to focus on Callan as a newborn, right? And then I don't know the timeline, but I'm pretty positive it was within 24 hours. She kind of circles back to that journal entry and was like, okay, I know what this sounds like. That's not how I meant it. I just meant I wish I could spend the same time I had with the other two, one-on-one time that I had with the other two, and I wish I had this with Callan as well. I didn't mean this in any crass way. You know, she cleans it up. She heard herself after she had a pause. I mean, sometimes we all need a beat. We're doing our best here. We're all moms trying to survive with our kids that drive us nuts all the time. So then she took that back. So now we're like working from that August to that September, October, she made her first appointment. And now we're in December, December 20th, 2026. She was evaluated at the Woman and Infant Hospital program for postpartum mental health care. Patrick was even the one that drove her there. So she must have had a conversation with him to lead to that drive, to that ride that he took her there, right? Like that conversation had to have been pretty intense and heavy for him to be like, all right, let's get in the car. I'm going to take you there. What can I do? Was she like, bring me there? We need to go. Where were the kids? Were the kids in the car? Did they have somebody look after them? Like, how did that all come about and unfold? Because to me, that's very interesting. So after the evaluation at this Woman and Infants Hospital program for postpartum mental health care, the medical team over there determined that their program was not the right fit for her, and then she returned home later that day. Now that sucks, because it literally says it in their title, but she's not the right fit. They said that she does not display symptoms supporting a postpartum diagnosis. It's like she's literally doing everything she knows. And I think like not only in her education, in her career, that she sees that she's probably having to educate the mothers that she's delivering their babies. And then she has to educate them on what to do in the event that they succumb to postpartum depression, where they can go, who they can reach out to, where they can get help. And now she herself finds herself in the same predicament, and she's following the steps that she herself gives the advice to other mothers. And she's trying to do all of the right steps and protocol. And at every turn, she's kind of being dismissed and turned away and, you know, kind of falling on deaf ears. I mean, what's a mother supposed to do? Honestly, what? I mean, I digress. I'll keep going. So, and then I guess, from my understanding, the prosecution is now using these records, like the records saying that when she went to see Dr. Tuft on October 25th, and that doctor diagnosed her with just generalized anxiety disorder, and then December 20th, when they're saying that she just doesn't fit, doesn't display the symptoms supporting a postpartum diagnosis. So I guess prosecution is now taking these medical records to use against her and saying, hey, look, we have it right here. You were fine. Like, oh my goodness gracious. Which kind of coincides into Patrick Clancy and Lindsay Clancy separately filed a civil lawsuit against a lot of these medical facilities and doctors that these prescribers, and they just filed this in January, I believe January 20th. I have the date here somewhere, which is kind of wild because it's almost 3 years to the date, but to each their own. So going back. Another interesting thing is also in that civil suit, though, let me just say that, that in the civil suit, it claims that in late December of 2022, it says that Lindsay had suicidal and homicidal thoughts and or tendencies. And it also states that, or not, doesn't state this, but kind of what came up is that Patrick disclosed this, that she disclosed that Lindsay had suicidal and homicidal thoughts later. I don't know exactly when. I meant to look this up, but he disclosed this later on and not initially. So what I take from this is that if Lindsay had homicidal thoughts, especially, and he knew this, first of all, he didn't tell anybody. And that would be huge. Like, why didn't you call her doctor? Why didn't you call CPS? Why didn't you call the pediatrician? Like, why didn't you call 911? Like, homicidal is like, why did you go to sleep next to her at night if she's literally telling you she has thoughts of killing somebody, right? And then, in addition to that, so now he's claiming all of this, that she had these homicidal thoughts, suicidal and homicidal. So on the day that all of this transpired, on January 24th of 2023, when he knew, because she texted him and said, because he had to leave the house that day to pick up dinner and go to CVS to pick up a certain medication. She texted him and said, any chance you want to do takeout from 3B? ? I didn't cook anything and it's been a long day. Okay. So she's already told him, and this was at 4:53 p.m. on the 24th, the day that this all happens. So now, again, we're going back to, he claims that she told him she had homicidal thoughts and tendencies. Now, on the day of, at 4:53, she literally tells him it's been a long day. But when he leaves, he doesn't think, okay, my wife has had a long day and I know what she's been going through. I know that she's having a hard time, so much that she is sharing with me not only suicidal thoughts, but homicidal thoughts. Let me do a solid for her here. And I'm going to take a couple of my children with me, maybe one of my children with me on this drive. Why did he need to take this drive alone? Again, a dad that these are his 3 children as well. She's alone with these kids all day long, all night long, all the time. And she's arranged this dinner. She called, ordered it, looked it up prior to even contacting him about it. She made sure that it was going to be in the vicinity. That's my opinion, that when she was looking this up from the CVS to where the restaurant is and the timetable, that she was making sure it was going to be on the way to not upset him, and then ran it by him. And then made sure it was all going to be kosher and good and no, doesn't make any waves. And then he doesn't think to maybe take the oldest or maybe the youngest and strap him into the car seat. He's not going to bother him. He's not going to ask for anything. He's just going to sit in the car seat and enjoy the ride, maybe even fall asleep. Who knows? Hey, here's a wild idea. What about if he took all three? They're his kids, aren't they? Why couldn't he take all three for the ride? What's so difficult about that? I mean, if we go over her day, she took them all three to a doctor's appointment. She took them all outside and built a whole snowman. I mean, what else did she do? She took care of them all day. She's nursing still, but he can't take them or one for a ride to pick up the dinner for them and a medication for one of the children that needs it. All right. So yeah. Jeannie says, say it loud. And Chloe says, men everywhere are mind blown by that proposal. Trust me, I know. So, and I speak on that because I'm speaking on life circumstances and events that I'm familiar with. I'm not just saying that because it happened to me, but I've lived a pretty long life, and whether it's happened to me or a friend of mine or one of my children or, anybody that I'm associated with, I'm speaking because I'm familiar with these certain circumstances and how men operate sometimes, not always. I'm not saying all men suck, just sometimes they suck. Okay. All right, next. So on January, all right, so then, here's the other thing with the whole, on December 20th and how she had Patrick take her to that clinic. That's also 5 days before Christmas, and it's 4 days before her daughter's birthday. So again, for me, that took a lot for her to admit that she needed help, and maybe because she wanted to be present for these two occasions. Maybe she saw like she just wasn't all there and she was falling back more and more, and like, there was just, if somebody did that, there was nobody there. And she herself was like, look, my daughter's birthday's coming up, Christmas is coming up, something needs to give. Nothing's been working thus far. I need help. I need to get back to, I want to find Lindsay again. I want to find that happiness again, at least get me there 30% of the way, and maybe I'll figure out the rest of the way. Just help me start finding myself. And now that leads us to, and we don't know how the holidays went, or at least I don't yet. I haven't gone that far. But then on January 1st, Lindsay voluntarily admits herself into the McLean Psychiatric Hospital. And from my understanding, she leaves 5 days later with no diagnosis and no treatment plan. They do determine that she is in no danger to herself or others. Okay, again, what's being missed here? On each one of these visits that she's having, it just seems like the same, they're getting the same diagnosis, they're getting the same conclusion, saying that she's fine. And I have a couple thoughts on this. One being, maybe because of her profession, her career, like what she does for a living, maybe once she gets to these appointments or these clinics, these psychiatric hospitals, maybe we already know she's suffering from severe panic, anxiety, depression. Maybe once she gets there and is faced with this, then all of those symptoms set in tenfold, and then she clams up and she's like, I don't know what to say even. And maybe she gets scared because if she's completely honest, maybe they're going to take her kids away from her, and reality sets in when she's there and she starts thinking it through, and kind of gets scared and kind of gives a surface level explanation as to what brings you here today. You know, how all those appointments start. So tell me what brings you here today, sweetie, you know, and then maybe at that point she's like, oh, shoot, I'm scared. And also it could be that whoever is receiving her, and it could just be wrong time, wrong place, wrong day. At those times where she happens to go in, whoever is on schedule that day, maybe just their personalities don't jive, and she doesn't feel comfortable with whoever is on intake for that time, and she's just not feeling comfortable enough to talk to them on what's really going on. My other thoughts are, I don't know how big or small, and I'm going to try to say this place again, Duxbury, Massachusetts is. And what if when she goes into these medical facilities, she runs into somebody that she recognizes, and that kind of sets her back, like, oh, well, I can't talk about it now because I just saw Rhonda from HR getting a cappuccino at the machine, and she's going to tell everybody that she saw me here. And now I got to figure out what I'm going to say. It can't be that severe. I'll lose my job, you know, stuff like that. We just don't know. But what we do know is that it doesn't match up to what Patrick has been saying, what others have been testifying, what the events are telling us, because clearly she murdered 3 of her children and then tried taking her own life. And they just don't match up with what her diagnosis have been, what the medical professionals are saying they got from her, what they think is going on with her. So something's amiss here, and it was a big one. So then on January 22nd, 2023, they have a friend over for dinner. His friend's name is Kyle. And from my understanding, this is more of a friend to Patrick than Lindsay. I'm not sure whether that matters or not, but Kyle says that Lindsay appeared normal. He didn't notice anything particularly off, just seemed like a normal dinner event or dinner time at the Clancy's. So, so he said everything was normal, but then, and I'd like to find out more understanding on this, because for whatever reason, Patrick mentions to Kyle that Lindsay is struggling with a benzo withdrawal. So, you know, and then I got to think about, how did that conversation come about? Like, what led to that? Did Lindsay have to excuse herself for some portion of this dinner? Did Lindsay bring it up herself? Did they start talking about medications? Was there a conversation about other people and medications? And then they said, oh yeah, by the way, Lindsay struggled with a withdrawal from that one too. That's a hard one to get off of. You know, how did it get to that topic or discussion for him to say something to me, for me, seems very personal, especially for a husband to reveal to just a friend, you know, like if I was having dinner and there was a friend over of my husband's and he just mentioned a medication that I'm having difficulty with, I'd be like, bro, see me outside now. You know, like, that's not okay. Like, that's personal, and that, like, there has to be more to that. Like, that needs to be expanded on, because otherwise it just seems like a violation of privacy. And what was his purpose of that? Benzos are like Xanax, Ativan, Klonopin, medications like that, kind of like they're a medication that you take as needed. They're not a medication that you need to build up in your system. You take it and you take it, like if you're having an anxiety attack, you take it right at that moment and it'll work right then. If you don't have an anxiety attack for 2 months, you don't need to take it for 2 months. But then if you have an anxiety attack for 5 days straight, you will take it for 5 days straight, right? So it's like, it's an as needed medication. You don't need to take it every day for it to work. But some people love to take it every day, and that's why they build addictions to it and dependence to it. So that was on the 22nd that they had that dinner. Then on the following day, the 23rd, she mentions again how she is struggling with postpartum anxiety because of her having to return to work. But one thing that I want to find here, because she also on the 23rd, I believe, went and saw her doctor. Let me double check on that. And then her doctor changed her medication, I believe. Yes. Okay, so on January 23rd, one day before the killings, Okay, it says, this is according to a testimony. It says, Lindsay said she was doing okay. Her appetite was decreased. She was taking 2 milligrams of Valium. She had no motivation. This is the testimony from her appointment on the 23rd. She had no motivation. She felt numb. She had to force herself to get out of bed and leave the house. She reported sleeping okay. She denied suicidal ideation, and she denied homicidal ideation. So this is the day before, on the 23rd, 2023, and it says it right here. She denied suicidal ideation, and she denied homicidal ideation. And when prosecutors asked whether Lindsay had told Tufts on January 23rd that she was planning to kill herself, Tufts' answer was no. Whether she had expressed plans to kill her children, Tufts' answer was absolutely not. So there's that. Now, this leads us to January 24th, but I need my chapstick. 1 second. Okay. So, what do we know about January 24th? Well, we know my lips are building their own snowman. That's what we know. Okay. So on January 24th, Lindsay appears calm. She takes the kids to the doctor. From what she needs from CVS, we can surmise that she took the kids to the doctor. I don't know which one needed the visit, but there was some stomach issues, right? Because I think it was Cora, the 5-year-old, because she needed the Miralax later on, right? They also build a snowman, and all in all, the day is said to have gone as normal as any other day, other than just the chaos that involves having 3 children under 5, right? One of them being an 8-month-old, which is a handful, right? You got to carry them around. It's not like they can get around. It's more lifting, it's more carrying, it's more items. So, at 4:02 p.m., Lindsay searches kids' Miralax at the CVS. At 4:13 p.m., Lindsay searches the 3V restaurant, where they essentially end up ordering their takeout that evening. She looks up an Apple map for travel time, and apparently some find this unusual, and they're like, oh, why did she look up the Apple map? And like the speculation on this is that she was looking up the map to find farther CVS for Patrick to drive to give herself more time to commit these murders. and she was timing it from the CVS to this 3V restaurant, and then back home, so she would have a set amount of time to commit these acts, right? I don't agree with that, because again, like I was saying earlier, if I need somebody to go and do more than one thing, I am going to look up the distance from one place to the other, because especially if in the past they've given me a hard time about it, then I'm going to be like, look, it's not that far apart. It's the CVS. I know it's not the typical CVS that we go to, but it's because this one doesn't carry the stuff that we need. I need you to go to the other one. It's not that far from the restaurant. It's only going to put you off like 4 extra minutes. I already mapped it out. It's right here. I already did the work. Can you do this for me? Right? Like, you kind of want to do the dirty work to avoid that argument. I understand that. So at 4:47, Lindsay calls the CVS, I believe it was in Kingston, I'm not sure the town name, to see if they carry Miralax, and they say no, but they tell her they have like a generic, something that's similar with similar ingredients. And then at 4:53 p.m., Lindsay texts Patrick, but he's working in the basement. So she's texting him even though he's right in the house, and asks him, any chance you want to do takeout from 3V? ? I didn't cook anything and it's been a long day. And Patrick agrees. So this is another contention, a topic of contention, I guess. A lot of people are saying, well, why did she have to text her own husband if he's in the same house? Like, that's bizarre. That means she was planning this. Like, okay, well, it's not bizarre, because, hold on one second. Close says, Lindsay told Patrick she Googled that because she was worried he was going to get stuck in rush hour traffic. All right, see, that's a perfect explanation. She was concerned. In my mind, he was obviously stuck in rush hour traffic before and got annoyed by it. It's something that he doesn't like, and she is aware of that. So she went around ahead of time to make sure that he doesn't get stuck in anything, and she already eliminated that issue, that argument, that problem. I can understand that as a wife, as a mother, as a person trying to avoid conflict. Like, I wholeheartedly understand that. Natty says, I text Jason when he's sitting next to me. Yeah, exactly. Chloe says, I text my husband all the time if we're in different parts of the house. Exactly. A lot of us do. Even if you have children in the house, I'm sure you text your children. We all do the same thing. It's a sign of the times. We've gotten complacent, we've gotten lazy, we've gotten used to it. And the other thing is, him working in the basement is something that I guess is just is a typical day for them. So in her defense, and also in his defense, why would she just open the door and scream down there? What if he's on a call? What if he's in a conference? What if he's in the middle of brainstorming something and then she throws him off with, hey, you want to get dinner? Like, it's a work day. And according to this, it wasn't 5 o'clock just yet. So she wrote him as in he's still working, and it's a normal work day, and she's writing him as if he was in the office. Why is that a problem? Come on. Just looking for something, I swear. So, okay. So she asks him if he wants to pick up the dinner. He agrees, and that's that. So that was at 4:53 p.m. At 5:06 p.m., so I assume he probably came upstairs by now, wrapped up his workday, came upstairs, and they all pick out their meals, and she calls to order it. She has some Mediterranean bowl. He has some salmon risotto dish. I don't know. At 5:15, so he must have left right after that, because at 5:15, she texted Patrick with the exact medication. That made me giggle a little, because it kind of falls in line with how I've been saying that she's gotten complacent with his complaints, and she knows how to work around it to avoid any contention in the home, right? And she's like, I'm going through enough. I don't need to piss him off or anything. So how she texted him the exact medication. Moms out there, I'm sure you all know this. Like, we tell them and then we tell them again and we write it down and then we got to send them a picture. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, we know the drill, right? And I get it. And then at 5:32 p.m., we have CCTV showing us Patrick is in fact at CVS. But what happens? He still doesn't know what the medication is. And that still falls in line with everything that I've been kind of trying to say here. So what does he do? He calls Lindsay at 5:33. He calls her, but she doesn't pick up. At 5:34, she calls him back because he can't find the med. And he tells her, or he says that she sounded like, when asked what it sound like when he spoke to her, and he says that it sounded like she was in the middle of something. Okay, well, I mean, that statement is wide open to me. A mom of 3 alone, again, because he's out there not understanding what Miralax means. Must be nice to be able to sit in CVS by herself and not understand what Miralax means while she's home, losing her mind with 3 kids, literally. So then he obviously goes to pick up the dinner at 3B, and at 6:09, he pulls into his home, which is from the research I found, it's 1,700, a little over 1,700 square foot house, 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, and obviously has a finished basement because we know that he works out of the basement. So he pulls, and they've purchased this house for about $500,000 at this point in 2023. They've lived in it for about 5 years. So we can assume that they purchased this home in 2018. So I don't know what houses are like over there in this area, Duxbury, but I mean, for I would assume that house at 1,700 square feet, 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath at $500,000, that's a lot. So hopefully they got a good return on it. I'm not sure. I do know that he did sell it to a private seller, like anonymous buyer, not seller. He sold it to an anonymous buyer shortly after the crimes. So when he arrives at 6:09 and he comes into the house, he is faced with that eerie silence that all of us must assume, for 6 o'clock dinner time, a home with 3 children, a house should not be quiet under no circumstance, just should not be. But the Clancy house at 6 o'clock, 6:09 p.m. was, for a lack of better terms, dead silence. So he goes looking around. From my understanding, he sees blood upstairs, and he sees a window open. He looks out the window. He sees Lindsay laying on the ground. He goes around to her, starts speaking to her, says, "Say my name." And this part I'm a little unclear on. The 911 tape was released, but only a portion of it. And so far, everything that I'm seeing, they're saying they're not going to release the full 911 recording. They're only going to release the portion that they have already released, which is just the beginning part where he calls and says that his wife is on the ground. And I guess you can hear when he finds the children and he's screaming. At that point, CPR attempts are made. The older 2, Cora and Dawson, were pronounced dead. At the scene, I believe they were pronounced dead at, have the time even, I think like 7:28 that evening. Yeah, 7:28 p.m. And baby Callan still showed faint signs of life and was transported to the Boston Children's Hospital, where he succumbed to his injuries 4 days later on the 27th. So at this point, they had a triple homicide. So the following day, the January 25th, a warrant was executed on their residence, and they retrieved the exercise bands, knife, notebooks, which were the journals, bloodstained materials, computers, phones, medications, hospital records, as well as the receipts from CVS and the restaurant 3B that they picked up their dinner, that Patrick picked up their dinner from the evening before. Patrick, a couple days after, also released a statement along with, there was a GoFundMe made for himself. For him, I guess. And there was a statement, and it went along the lines of, I want to ask all of you that you find it deep within yourselves to forgive Lindsay as I have. The real Lindsay was generously loving and caring towards me, our kids, our family, friends, and her patients. Her condition deteriorated rapidly, and the person who killed the children is not the woman I knew. So that's what we have. Basically, the state wants to prove that she planned this. If they are able to prove it, honestly, I don't think that she will spend a lot of time behind bars. I think that it'll be a short sentence, and she belongs in a mental facility and finally deserves the medical care that she needs. I really think so. The GoFundMe is now paused, and it is paused at $1,075,411. I don't know why it's paused, but there's that. Patrick has remarried. He just remarried this year, I believe in April, and he now lives in New York City. His new wife is, I believe, a doctor, and he has started a family. So it says that his new child, but it says children, but it says new child is of toddler age. So perhaps the child came before and then the marriage came after. None of our business, I guess. A lot of speculation whether he was already in the process of leaving Lindsay. Maybe there was an affair already happening, and that's why there was this downward immediate spiral. Just a lot of chatter about that. I haven't seen anything. I don't know anything about that. Maybe more will come out. Initially, when this trial had started, all of the reports were saying that the trial is going to last 6 to 8 weeks. Today, that's changed, and now they're saying 4 to 6 weeks. Why it's changed, again, I don't know. Natty is saying, this man gives me Chris Watts vibes. 1,000%. Say it, Natty. I agree. Just, there's something off, right? There's something off about him, but at the same time, everybody wants to say it's not fair to be pointing the fingers at the husband. He's suffering too. 1 second. The other chatter kind of that is going around, and they're saying that it's just typical for the internets, the sleuths, the Redditors, the YouTubers, the Xers and Facebookers, all of them, to jump on and crucify the only man standing in this situation, and that's because of where this case is in the moment right now, because they said this case is going to last 6 to 8 weeks, and we're only 9 days into it, essentially, so like 2 weeks into it, and we're kind of at a lull with it, and everyone's getting bored. They're kind of like, yeah, okay, keep it moving, get to the interesting stuff, get to the meats of this, and people are bored, so they're making up their own theories and their conspiracies and this and that, and they don't have anybody. I mean, who do we have in this trial? We have Lindsay, the 3 kids, and Patrick. Lindsay's already, she's on the stand. I mean, that's who's being crucified. 3 kids aren't around, and we have Patrick. So yeah, they are going to figure out ways to point fingers at him. And I mean, it's not like he doesn't give any reason not to. He's already remarried and has children. So, you know, and they filed a civil lawsuit together but separately. And, you know, and like I was saying earlier, there's just this just some missing facts here on what he was saying on, you know, how he disclosed later on that she was suicidal and homicidal, but he didn't disclose that initially. And if he knew that, again, why didn't he bring at least 1, 2, or just all 3 of his children with him when she expressed that it was a long, difficult day? So when I mentioned too that the following day, on the 25th, there was a warrant executed. Part of the items that were retrieved was, I believe it was like a bag of medication. I'm not sure. I think it was like a bag that Patrick handed over to the officer. And let me just make sure I don't have it written down exactly how they got it. But okay, so either way. Okay. Okay. So he hands this bag over, and in there are 9 different medications, right? We know that she was prescribed 13, but upwards of 30 different kinds over, I think 13 months in total, or I have that too here somewhere. Let me just, I'm probably saying that wrong. Let me double check that. I have her journal entries too. We can go over those. Let me get the right. Oh no, it was 30 individual prescriptions involving 13 psychiatric medications over a 4-month period. Geez, even worse. So they got, during the warrant search on the 25th, the officer, I had his name written down here. It's kind of bothering me because now oh, here we go. Joseph Raddick, I think. And he was a trooper detective at the time. Now he's a specialist in the cybercrime unit. So yes, Patrick brings him a bag of medication. There was 9 bottles that he provides. So my question to that too is, was he asked for it? Like, how did that come about that he just goes and digs up this bag of bottles, right? And so when he brings these bottles, at some point they go through all the medications and count how many pills are in the bottle versus how many pills came prescribed, right? So first bottle, I'm just going to go in order of the dates of them being prescribed from earliest to the latest, and then I'll go over the amounts in the bottles and then my thoughts on it. So Zoloft, Close says, I think he gave it to them voluntarily because he felt they should have it. It was a bag of old medications he was keeping in his vehicle. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you for that, Chloe. Okay, Zoloft, its generic name is known as sertraline. And the prescription date on this is September 15th, 2022. She was prescribed 30 pills and she took 7 because there were still 23 left in the bottle. Next bottle was prescribed on October 26, 2022, and that was lorazepam, which is, the brand name is Ativan. Generic name is lorazepam. So let me go back to the Zoloft. Zoloft is an antidepressant. That's a kind of medication that you need to take to build into your system. So like you can't just take one pill and it works automatically. You have to take it for like 2 weeks to 4 weeks for it to build into your system, for it to do the chemical balance in your brain, and then you'll know if it's actually having an effect on you positively or negatively. So then the lorazepam, the Ativan, which was on October 26th, that is more like a fast-acting, immediate kind of medication. That's one of the benzos that I mentioned earlier. So that, it says it was prescribed on the 26th, but I'm wondering if maybe that's when it was filled, because we know that she saw the doctor on the 25th, right? So let me go back to that 25th. Of course, now I can't find it, but I'll have it here somewhere. 1 second. Okay. Bear with me. I'm finding it. It's here somewhere. Or is it not? Oh, got it. Okay. Yes. So October 25th, she had the appointment with Jennifer Tufts. And that's when Jennifer diagnoses her with generalized anxiety disorder and prescribes her Zoloft. But from what we see here, she was prescribed more than just Zoloft, because she was also prescribed Ativan, which is the lorazepam. That's the fast acting, like it'll calm your anxiety, like, pretty relatively quickly, like within 5 minutes or so. And she was prescribed buspirone. It's called Buspar. That's the actual name for it, and then generic name is buspirone, and that's for anxiety as well. And that was on 10/26, so that's probably the day she filled it. She was prescribed 30 pills, and she filled 28 of them. Or she had 28 left. That means she only took 2. And let's see if I can get the... Okay, I don't have the milligram on that. All right, the Ativan. Zoloft was 25 milligrams, then went up to 50. Ativan was 5 milligrams and then 1 milligram. Okay, and then next on 10/26 as well, so probably from 10/25, hydroxyzine, which is a short-term anxiety medication, but it's also used as like a Benadryl, like if you're having a rash or poison ivy or something like that. So she was prescribed that as well. Let's see if that's on here. Does not say. Okay. But it says that there was 30 pills prescribed and she still had 22 left. FloJo says 5 milligrams of Ativan. No, 0.5. And then later on, 1 milligram, 0.5. Point. So those were, the 3, those were all 10/26. The 3 are lorazepam, buspirone, which is Buspar, and the hydroxyzine, which is also like a Benadryl. Those are those 3 on 10/26, which I would assume that she got prescribed on 10/25 because she had an appointment with Dr. Tufts. Now the next date is November 2nd, so about a week later, and she is given lorazepam again. So everyone's like probably thinking, what, a week later and she's getting it again? So let's see exactly how. So that was 22. So that was October 25th. 26th, and then, yeah, exactly 1 week later. So she probably had an appointment. Let's do a follow-up in 1 week and see where you're at, right? That's typical verbiage with a doctor, patient. Let's follow up in 2 weeks, 1 week. Let's see where you're at. And looks like over here they did a 1 week perhaps follow-up, and 1 week later. So we could assume that the first prescription was for the 0.5 milligram of the Ativan on 10/26, and then a week later she was prescribed them again, and now at 11/2, so November 2nd. This time she's prescribed 40 pills, and we can assume that this time she was given the 1 milligram, so double the dose from the week before of the 0.5. However, there are 18 and a half pills left. And I want to make sure I got that right, because that would mean that she took, what, 22 or 21 and a half, but that she was breaking them in half, though, to get that 0.5 milligram. But the 0.5 milligram up top from September, she still has 7 of those left, but now all of a sudden she's taking like 18 of them. Okay, moving on. Now the Buspar, the busporin for anxiety, she's prescribed that again on November 9th. And she's prescribed 30 pills, and there's still 30 left in the bottle. Then on November 16th, she's prescribed trazodone. Trazodone is typically prescribed for sleeping. It's a sleep agent. Let's see if that's on here. And it says, on here, it says up to 150 milligram. So what I'm going to assume is they gave her maybe 50 milligram pills and said, you can take 3 of these, up to 3 a night. You can break them in half if you have to, so it's only 25. Just see how it goes and see your tolerance and how you feel. I mean, trazodone is not a sleeping pill, not like an Ambien where, if you take, well, this is just my opinion too, but like typically if you take an Ambien and you're not used to it, you're going to sleep real good, and you're not going to remember a lot from that sleep or the following day. Like you're just going to be out of it. But a trazodone, it just gives you a small window. Like if you take it, and let's say right now it's 10/22. So if I took a trazodone right now, 10/22. So at 11:20, around there, that's my window to fall asleep. And I only have like a 10-15 minute window at that hour point to fall asleep. And if I miss that window, like let's say at 11:22, somebody calls me and they're like, hey, I got to tell you something. And they talk to me for 20 minutes. Well, shit, I missed that window and I'm not going to be tired anymore. Like it's just, and it's not like when they're talking to me during that little window of tiredness that I'm like falling asleep. It just kind of gives you like a sense of calm, and it just helps you get to that sleeping state. It doesn't knock you out. Would 150 milligrams knock a person out? 1000%. So it just depends if she actually used it. And here it's saying that she took, out of the 30 pills, she took 7.5, because it says 22.5 were still left in the bottle. Next, on November 21st, she was prescribed fluoxetine, which is the generic name for a Prozac. And her dosage was 10 milligrams, which is the lowest dose available. So they started her on the lowest dose and probably were like, let's see how you feel. And then after 2 weeks, we'll increase it from there to 20, to 40, to 80. And we'll see if maybe Prozac is what you need. Because it's trial and error, honestly. Nobody knows until they try. So she tried the fluoxetine, and this one I'm kind of not clear on too. Let me see if I wrote it down, but it said that she was prescribed, and my notes could be wrong, but she was prescribed 56 pills, and there were still 43 left in the bottle. So for whatever reason, she took 13. So that I could kind of assume she took 2 weeks worth, because they tell you take 2 weeks and see how you feel, and let's circle back and go from there. And maybe she did exactly that, took the 2 weeks and said, it's not helping me. But at least she did what they asked her to do. I mean, right? And then so there were 9, remember I'm reading the 9 pills, bottles that were in the bag that Patrick handed over to the detective that issued the search warrant the following day after the murders. And then lastly was clonazepam, which is the generic name for Klonopin, our lovely Cleos. And that was prescribed on November 25th. And that bottle had 14 in the bottle. That's what she was given, was 14 pills. And there were 11 and a half left. So she took 4.5, right? Or 3.5. And let's see if they have, okay, so her dosage was 1 milligram on the Klonopin. And Klonopin is a immediate acting medication as well. That's another benzo. So yeah. There's something I forgot to mention. And I hate jumping around like this, but when I was talking about the dates earlier, like when things were going downhill, and I mentioned how August was the date where, or like the month where they're stapling as it was the turning point, and just there was a trigger. They don't know what they can't say what it was. They really don't know, but something happened in August and she just went downhill, and it was like an abrupt halt, and all the symptoms kind of happened at once: the insomnia, the anxiousness, the panic, the severe anxiety, the depression, everything, right? And so, and I was like talking about, well, what can we kind of, what happened in August, or what was going to happen? And some of the things that we do know is she had her birthday in August, and then coming up in September. Oh, the other thing in August is August 31st was the first day of school for their school district where they lived. So maybe Cora, their oldest, was starting kindergarten. And as we know, as parents, that's a big event, right? For any parent, whether it's your first or your 15th, whatever, right? It causes a lot of anxiousness, and you're sending your firstborn, your baby, to school. Now somebody else has to look after them, and she's already dealing with a lot. So maybe that was kind of a trigger for her as well. And then in addition to that, in September, coming up in September, she knew she was having to return to work from her maternity leave. And also Patrick, his paternity leave was coming to an end, and he was returning to work. So all of these little caveats could be adding to this big, like they say, an abrupt halt of the euphoric feeling that she kind of says she was feeling all summer. And now it's, a dark loom, that's like a dark cloud that just suddenly is hovering over her. So did they do anything to kind of help, or to help Lindsay pass this dark loom, this dark cloud? And they did. And what they did is they hired a nanny in September. So I want to find that part. So let me just get back to that real quick, because I think that's super interesting that they went as far as hiring a nanny and getting help outside of the home to help Lindsay. So let me just find that here. And the nanny testified this week too. So that's what I'm looking for while I'm shuffling around here. And I know it's probably really annoying, and I apologize for that. But I had it here. when I felt that I was all organized. Oh, found it. Okay. So, she started working in September, and when they hired her, they told her that her primary job was to help care for the baby Callan. And it says her primary job would be caring for baby Callan while Lindsay prepares to return to work. Her testimony was significant because it describes two separate things, right? And the nanny's name is Elaine Rossi. So when Elaine goes up on the stand, she says, Lindsay appeared to be a loving, attentive mother. That's one thing. She says Lindsay was privately struggling with postpartum issues and sleep. She says Lindsay was taking psychiatric medication. She says that she was never concerned about Lindsay's safety around the children. And she says that Lindsay had talked with her about postpartum problems and difficulty sleeping. The defense emphasized Lindsay's attentiveness as a mother based on the nanny's testimony. The nanny described Lindsay as a wonderful mother who loved her kids. She also testified that Lindsay was concerned about Callan's eating and sleeping schedule and that she did not view Lindsay as controlling or overbearing. She also did not testify, though, that Lindsay ever told her that she wanted to kill herself or ever hurt her children or even kill her children. Again, going back to the being homicidal, right? So that's the distinction here, that Rossi, the nanny, is sharing that Lindsay is a great mother by all accounts, that everything she has viewed, by her own admission, she's seen by her own eyes. Lindsay was a great mom. She was attentive. She did the best she could. But at the same time, Lindsay also shared with her struggles and that she's suffering from postpartum depression, that she's taking medications for this disorder that she's dealing with at the moment. So this shows me that Lindsay is confiding in her as well. And it's another person that she's kind of looking to me, it looks like she's looking for some feedback, some assertion, tell me what I should do. Like, what would you do in this situation? Like, I don't know if this Elaine has children. I don't know how old she is, but she was enough for Lindsay to be trusted with her children. That says a lot. And then she was also enough for Lindsay to be trusted for her to tell about her personal issues as well. So she meant something to her. Like, she had an aura about her that Lindsay trusted her, right? The nanny, let me see, I think I have for how long the nanny stayed, but she only stayed until December. I don't have it right now, but they let her go in December because it was at that point they decided that they don't know exactly when Lindsay is going to be returning to work or whether she's actually returning to work. So they decided they don't need Elaine's help as much as they thought they did, and they let her go. It was not contentious, it was friendly, and everything was fine. So yeah. So here's where I kind of struggle. Nobody's talking about like the heavy stuff about this, like the serious questions that need to be asked between that occurs between a couple, between a married couple, and especially when they start having children, and how that changes the dynamics and the attention and who gets the attention. For me, I'm very curious what their sex life was like, and when's the last time they had sex? Who initiated the sex? Was it Lindsay? Was it Patrick? Was it fun? Was it entertaining? Was it grueling? Did it seem like it was a job? How often do they have intimate moments? How often do they have date night? Who initiates the date night? Things like that. How was their relationship as a couple? And yes, exactly. Natty just said, do they do date nights? And who initiates those date nights? And what do they involve? Do they go out? Do they get a babysitter? I know that Patrick's dad, I think, was on the stand this week too. Let me see. I think I have his testimony. And his testimony was kind of like, so Patrick's father and Lindsay's former father-in-law, Christopher Clancy, testified. And now he says he knew Lindsay was struggling. He knew she wasn't sleeping well. He knew she didn't feel well. He knew she had gone to the emergency room. He also testified that at one point he suggested that he and his wife take the grandchildren, but Patrick declined. When he says take the grandchildren, like custody, like take them like as guardians, I mean, what does that entail? That is potentially, hold on. So yeah, that would show that the family was aware of this, but I mean, I think we need to know more about the dad saying we suggested to take the grandchildren. That's pretty heavy to me. Chloe says she mentioned in her journal really wanting to be intimate with Patrick again, but being terrified about getting pregnant again. Ah, interesting. And I have the journals. I just haven't gone through them all. I have some of them here. That's a good point. Natty says, was she worried about him cheating or not finding her attractive anymore? Did he help around the house? See, like these are all things that could lead to this mental state as well. And of course, why didn't he take a child with him to give her a break? And not only in that circumstance on that day, but prior to that, was that just how their dynamics worked? Is it normal that he doesn't take them when he goes places? Is she always stuck with all three of them all the time? And when he has to go somewhere, he gets to go by himself and enjoy getting in and out of the car really quickly, and, getting to listen to whatever music he wants and not the ABC song for the 700th time, and up the hill and down the hill and over the hill and all that again, and again. Like, all that stuff matters. Whether they think so or not, it matters. And we value that time. Chloe says they actually seem to have a decent relationship, though probably lacking depth. Patrick said they would hug each other every morning and do a check-in to find out how each other was feeling. Okay, okay. Natty says if he knew she was struggling, why not help by taking at least one? Natty's stuck on that. Yeah. If Patrick is saying that they would hug each other every morning and do a check-in, does he say that they've done that their entirety of their relationship, or that had just started once once her psychosis kind of started and her mental state went downhill? because I find that very interesting. Well, good on him. I mean, I find that very interesting. Also testified this week was a childhood friend of Lindsay's, Amy Bevins. Lindsay told her friend Amy that the medication that she is taking caused her to experience dark thoughts. But also Bevins said that she never heard Lindsay say or express any homicidal or suicidal thoughts. And Bevins also testified that when she went to visit Lindsay at the rehab facility, that Lindsay didn't bring up the children or even cry about them. But on rebuttal, I believe the defense, or on cross, the defense then said, well, didn't Lindsay's sister ask you specifically not to bring up the children? And Bevins was like, well, yeah. Okay, well then wouldn't that be why why the children didn't come up? I mean, I would assume she's heavily sedated as well. Always looking for something. And yeah, I know, like, there's the whole thing that she asked for a lawyer soon after, but that's why I think we're all having some questions. The Basement Jesus, hey y'all, I love the name. I think that's why a lot of questions are kind of coming up too, because why would she ask for a lawyer? What was she wanting to defend herself about right from the jump? That's kind of confusing. And, you know, devil's advocate for me is thinking she knows that there's more going on behind the scenes, and she needs to protect herself, and she's scared of something. But what is it? I don't know. Chloe says Amy was the best. Everyone needs an Amy. We all need an Amy. Sometimes we don't, though. Sometimes Amy's in our lives can bring negative stuff, I think. I'm waiting for the one person to be like, yeah. Okay. So the other thing, the medications. Hold on, I have a better list of them because, like I said, there was 30 medications overall prescribed, 13 of them being like psychiatric medications, and all of that within the last 4 months, right? So I just want to talk about that just a little bit. Oh wait, hold on. We have Chloe saying, I got chills when Amy talked about visiting her after the incident. I can't imagine what a crazy experience that was. Yeah, I honestly have to be honest. I didn't listen to it. I only read about it. So, but you saying that, Chloe, I will go back and listen to it myself, because just you saying that honestly makes me now even more intrigued. And but yeah, no, I only read about it, and yeah, I would definitely have to listen to it. What else? Like, can you tell us some highlights about it? Other than her saying that Lindsay didn't bring up the children or cry. So with the medications, I know that she's being kind of judged on being on all these medications over a short period of time, and that she was maybe doctor shopping or prescription shopping. I'm going to speak from my own experience and just say my own opinion based on my own experience on a lot of these medications. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, a long, long time ago, I went through a very difficult time, and I had to deal with medications and, mental, disorders and all the same kind of verbiage, and meeting with professionals and finding out what I was going to need to get me on the better side of things. So when I'm reading through these medications that she was prescribed during, this time frame, and how she's kind of being judged that she was doctor shopping or prescription shopping, my own opinion here is I don't see it like that. I really don't, because we don't know the underbelly of what happened when she started taking each one of these medications. And I'll give some examples. So we know that she was prescribed the Zoloft to start with, right? Just based on the dates that I have here. And typically with Zoloft, they ask you to take it for at least 2 weeks, more like 4 weeks, just to see how your body, your brain reacts to it. If you start to notice a difference, if you see that some of the symptoms that you're originally experiencing, if they're fading away, or if you're managing them better, differently, if you seem more outgoing, if your anxiety has kind of quieted down, things like that. And they'll do, a follow-up visit. And if she had the Zoloft prescribed, and then they did their follow-up visit, and she's saying, I'm feeling XYZ, but none of those XYZs are positive, then sometimes, and a lot of times, they won't go and just switch the medication right off the bat into a different antidepressant. They'll add like a bumper, like, here, we'll give you have your Zoloft, but now we're going to add like a bumper to kind of bump that Zoloft to make it even more confetti come out of it. Like, it's already given some confetti, but there's some at the bottom that hasn't come all out. So here's a bumper to make sure all the confetti comes out of the Zoloft and gives you all the benefits, right? So, right, FloJo says the medications need to reach a therapeutic level, which can take up to 4 weeks. But then they'll give sometimes the bumper, right? And so I'm going to assume that when she was given, let me just make sure I'm going to say it right before I say it. So when she was given like the Seroquel, the Ativan, stuff like that, it's kind of in addition to, like, Basement Jesus said, like, Buspar, she was given that as well. And then she was also given Ambien. So that's just in addition to, she was given Ambien. That's a sleep medicine. And maybe it didn't work for her. She was also given Remeron, which is another antidepressant for major depressive disorder. So maybe that was in addition to, I'm not sure, so I don't know for sure. The hydroxine was like a Benadryl. That's like a fast-acting, kind of another fast-acting medicine for anxiety. And then she was also given the Trazodone. So my guess is the Trazodone was given instead of the Ambien. So like maybe she tried the Ambien, she didn't like it. So they're like, all right. And she was probably saying the side effects, I can't take Ambien. I'm nursing. Like, it's knocked Callan out for 4 days. Like, my goodness. So they're like, all right, we'll give you something that works better, even though it fell into the right class for nursing, whatnot. We'll give you something that doesn't have the major side effects. Maybe some of the side effects were affecting her so severely that they were emphasizing these symptoms for her. Or maybe it just was making her a couch potato. And as a mother of three, she has no time to be a zombie couch potato. And so she kind of wasn't giving it the full 4 weeks, but after 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks, she was like, all right, I already saw a shift in me and I don't like how I feel. Some maybe she had a immediate adverse reaction. We don't know. What if she had an allergic reaction? We don't know. But there's something that led to this many medications. And if somebody looked up my medications from that period of time that I went through literally a psychosis, they're going to get a long list too. I mean, there were some medications that I was prescribed that sent me to the emergency room a couple times, like some that made me feel like I was tripping balls, like really, really tripping. Some that would make me, sleep for days. Some that made me, crazier than I originally was. And it was all trial and error. And it was trial and error for a little bit there until we found the perfect formula. And here I am. So what's not to say that that's kind of what they were trying to do for her too. And it just wasn't working, but she kept going back and asking for help. And I think that's very big on her and big of her. And I commend her for asking for help, because a lot of people don't. And it's hard to say, and they wait until it gets, too far. But I mean, in this matter, there's no right or wrong, because it got too far anyway. So yeah, Flojo says, dear Lord, I wonder if she ever sleptwalk. I think the insomnia really messed with her a lot, and really, I think it caused her to hallucinate. There's this whole thing where she's saying that there was a voice telling her to do this, like, now's the time. Or like, what was the voice saying? Something like, now is your last chance, or now is your only chance. And from my understanding, this male voice has spoken to her before, and they're saying that the prosecution is saying that, well, she was able to turn this voice away before and not answer to it and not act on it. What was different this time that she answered to it and acted on what the voice was saying? So what's different about it? And that's part of, I guess, their strategy, but I don't know how that helps. I really don't. Chloe says, about her friend Amy. Amy was such a damn good friend to her. She shared her own experience with mental health and was there for Lindsay throughout their lives. State tried to say Lindsay didn't talk about it. Oh, and didn't care. The defense then clarified that Lindsay's sister, instructed Amy not to bring it up. Yeah, exactly. That's why I was like, why would they try to say that it was on Amy when it was Lindsay, or it was her sister that told her not to bring it up? Chloe says the defense theory is essentially that they missed the official bipolar diagnosis, and if there had been a diagnosis, some of those meds cause psychosis in folks with bipolar. Yeah. For the record, Tufts at one point diagnosed bipolar, but then walked that diagnosis back. Oh, crap. Feeling Lindsay didn't fit the criteria. Natty says, this is probably why I never had psychosis. I don't listen. I don't listen to anything. Yeah. Wow. Well, that's interesting about Tufts walking. Tufts has a very tough name to pronounce too. Walking the diagnosis back. But she's still, from what it looks like, based on the dates on the bottles, she still was prescribing her, medications to treat a condition such as bipolar disorder. And those are just the dates that I was able to get over here. Let me see if this other paper has dates on it. If I can find it. But I can't. I know you don't mean to make a joke out of it. Oh, we are all diagnosed, Natty. Oh, here it is. Found it. Okay. So, okay, I do have some dates, but no, the majority of them are around that October, November time when she saw Jennifer Tufts. And this is an excellent point here. Natty says it would be really good if we could normalize talking about our mental health. And that's what Lindsay tried doing over and over again. She tried going to clinics. She tried going to postpartum clinics that supposedly specialize in postpartum depression. She tried going, she went to her husband. She went to her friend Amy. She went to her nanny. There's we can see a lot of outreach here. And from what I am seeing, it just fell on deaf ears and she was lost. There was some breaking point here. And I don't know. We're missing something. Do you think she's going to testify? Chloe says state's motive is absolutely going to sink them. They're going with fake slide, and she just wanted to move on to a new life. They should have just went with serious mental illness, no psychosis. Wow. Do they have examples of her planning this new life? Do they have anything to back this up? That's wild. I don't believe that at all. Like, I don't believe she was trying to go on with a different life or a new life or any of that. I really don't. Any other questions? We're almost at 2 hours, so I'm going to wrap it up now. Natty says, I have no problem telling people I'm a little broken. BPD, have suicidal ideation, chronic depression disorder, CPTSD, but I would never intentionally hurt anyone with no reason. I know you wouldn't, Natty. I hope you wanted me to read that out loud too. I hope that's okay. Chloe says, just her complaining in mom forums about Dawson and their insistence on superficial wounds sliding down the house versus jumping. Yes, I saw that too. I have one of her posts here. It says, hello, lovely parents. And the title or like the name of this group is Attachment Parenting for Littles. And she posted this on May 5th, 2021. And it says, hello, lovely parents. Let me wet my whistle. I am looking for some advice, solidarity, ideas, something, anything. I am truly finding my 19-month-old to be the most difficult human I have ever encountered. I mean that with all of the love in my heart, but I honestly cannot make it through a day without getting so frustrated with him. He is not my first child, so not to compare because I know that every child is different. But just for background, this isn't my first rodeo. Every single thing, and she wrote that like in all capitals and a period between each word. Every single thing with him is a battle. And it has been this way for a while, since he was maybe, I think it says 8 months old. I really try to pick my battles and only do what's completely necessary. But I mean everything, getting out of his crib in the morning and going downstairs, changing his diaper, getting him dressed, getting him in his seat to eat, getting him in his car seat, getting him out of the car seat, putting on his jacket and shoes to go outside, having him come inside when it's time, going to sleep for his nap and at night. His fight is me every step of the way with all of these very normal day activities. It instantly feels like I have to force him to do these things, which feels so wrong. And he is always fighting me and crying about doing these very normal things. One thing that stuck out to me in this is that where she says, every single thing with him is a battle. And it has been this way for a while, since maybe he was 8 months old. Well, who else was 8 months old? Callan. So is 8 months old the peak of her breaking point too? Since that's what sticks out for her when Dawson started to become difficult? I don't know. But what I do want to say is, so these parenting forums and groups and stuff like that, I honestly, I know maybe too much about them. I started these probably 23 years ago, before Facebook, before any of that. And I would build them every morning. I'd get up and build the whole page and have all the members come in and we would discuss our, whatever we had going on. It was always, us moms or us stay-at-home moms, us women, and this was kind of what it entailed. And it was stay-at-home moms that we would take breaks and sit in front of the computer. We would wait for the dial-up and it would turn on, and we had nobody else to interact with because we stayed home with our children. And so we tapped into the internets, the World Wide Web. It was so interesting. These groups were so interesting, and meeting other moms that are kind of in the same predicament as we are and connections. So did we sometimes write these complaints with a little bit more like dramatization to them because we wanted more responses? And if we just said, hey, my kid's being a dick, what can I do about it? We knew we wouldn't get any responses. Heck yeah. I mean, that's what everything is on, even to this day. You're not going to put up sell something on Marketplace and just be like, hey, buy this from me. You're going to pump it up. You're going to massage it. You're going to, decorate it. Right. So, and I'm not saying that's what happened here, but I also think we should give her the benefit of the doubt, because this also just seems very, performative. So I don't know. And yes, exactly. Chloe says, God help me if anything ever happens to one of my kids and they read my forum posts. 100%. And like I said, I've been doing these forums for 23 years or so. And if people found that stuff of mine, don't go looking for it. You won't find it. But if somebody did, I can only imagine, like, yikes on several bikes. All right. Well, it's 11 p.m. It's Friday night and it's 2 hours. I appreciate everybody that joined and chatted. I appreciate the support. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. And yeah, tomorrow I'm supposed to be doing another live with Matt Rowland to discuss the legal aspects of the Brian Koberger case and his post-conviction appeal. Have a good night, everybody. See y'all later.